So 40 to 50, $60,000 for an apartment. What are the types of infrastructure that you're doing to those apartments? So the listeners can get a sense of, okay, this is what Brian means of a redevelopment of an apartment.
Sure. So I'll give you an example. So we bought a 20 unit building, and we went through and changed out all the roofs. We re-sided all of the buildings. We did all of the parking lots. We laid new concrete patios for every single unit. We changed out every single door. We put down LVT, but that's after we ripped up all the old stuff. All new kitchens, entirely new bathrooms, all new lighting fixtures, painted everything. So it's literally the only thing left was the concrete foundation, the framing, and as much drywall as you could save, because drywall is drywall. You can usually repair it with paint and what have you. But everything else, landscaping, everything was redone. And we ended up spending $50,000 per unit on that. So it was, over $1 million to redevelop the property.
So that was built post 1960?
That building? Nope. That building was, probably 50s, I think was when it was
50s.
built. 50s,
so did you rewire? Were you pulling new service lines to each apartment, or was the power sufficient?
The power was sufficient. It had already been, maybe upgraded in the 70s.
Okay.
So I think at first they used to be single story buildings, and these were all quadplexes. They were 5 quadplexes in a row.
5 quads.
And at some point they put a second level on the apartment buildings, and they created 4 units instead of 2 is what I imagine. There's no blueprints or anything, but you kind of get into these, as and you kind of just start piecing things together. Right. All right, where is everything? Like, what do we need to do? But like you said, all the drains were rotted. So we had to snake everything out to the road. And this is extensive work. Like, you have to redo everything. But now that it's done, we have almost no maintenance requests. Yes. Everything works. Everything's new. And I think it's the difference between we invest for wealth creation long-term. And if you're doing a cosmetic renovation, you're really just a flipper. You're flipping the building and you're trying to get a profit and move on to the next one.
Yeah. And when I'm reading the books on the larger multifamily, even when the appraisers are coming out to appraise these buildings, they usually have the maintenance cost of what it would be for a very large complex with on-site. Oh, we need to unclog a toilet that the tenant can't handle. Great. Let me just get on my golf cart and zip over there. And that's not how that works.
Yeah.
With these small multifamilies. And a lot of the investors that I'm up against, and I try to educate, because they're all paying me. And I know the maximum that I can pay for this building with 20 years expert in these small multis. And I love the fact that how many of were you able to, did you buy that vacant, or did you have to move the tenants out? Were you able to do a building at a time? I mean, that took you some months to do all these. What did that cadence look like on a project like this?
So I don't know from your experience, you probably have seen the same, but when you're going into a redevelopment like this, the tenant profile that is in the building now today, when you buy it, is not going to be the same as when it's done. The rents are, going up 60, 100%. It's a completely different profile. So in the past, on certain circumstances, we've actually brought the occupancy of the building down to 0. So we're providing notices. We actually fund relocation expense to help them move. In many cases, sometimes that goes smoother than others, but it's kind of, we're stuck in some cases. If you want to frame it as like we're the bad guy, we're coming in to change, to kick everyone out. But the reality is the building has been sitting there neglected for 50 years. And now the bill needs to be paid, right? So nobody has fixed it up, taken care of it. So at some point, it's either going to fall down, or somebody like us has to step in and redevelop it.
Yes.
So that's what we do. And that one also happened in 2020. So we were right in the middle of COVID. So everyone had moved out by, call it December of 19. Thankfully. And then we started construction. And then when COVID started in New York, we got a lot of limitations put on our contractors on what they could do. So
Everything can't be an emergency repair.
Yeah. Well, so
Nobody's living there.
at first they shut us down and they said that you couldn't do any construction work. And then they realized that that was a bad idea. So then what they came up with was one person per building could be doing renovation work. So thankfully we had 5 buildings. So we had one
Okay.
contractor in every building doing something. And that went on for months.
And who was checking on that? People actually coming by?
I mean, I guess if somebody from the labor department or somebody
Okay.
saw, then I guess they could have said something, but nobody really physically checked. But we adhered to it as much as we could. But it was definitely a unique situation.